GamesBeat Decides podcast. It's deciding time. There is Mike and Dean making strange faces in your cameras. It's your weekly source for a couple of guys taking video games way too seriously. I'm your host, Jeffrey Grubb. With me is GamesBeat lead writer Dean Takahashi. Say hi, Dean.
Hello.
And then we have Mike Minotti freaking me out up there in the upper right. He's our community manager. He's a writer. He's my cohort and my subordinate. Say hello, Mike.
Hi.
Oh my God. This is
okay. I'm done.
This is already a train wreck. How's it going, guys? Who saw Rogue One? I want to talk about Rogue One.
I saw Rogue One.
I saw Rogue One.
Okay, so everyone. All right, so we've seen it. So let's just spoil it for everybody.
Oh, good.
What'd you guys think of when they were like, here's 5 Death Stars? There were really 5 Death Stars. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I was like really hoping for a 6th Death Star, so I was pretty disappointed.
I agree with you on that one. Yeah, I was happy that the one Death Star was actually the made Death Star thing from Spaceballs. It was going to come in with the vacuum cleaner. It was impressive.
I liked all the scenes of Luke as a farmer.
There you go.
Very good. Okay, well, I'm kind of wondering what you guys have been doing. What have you guys been playing? Mike, why don't we start with you? Have you been doing anything fun?
I finally went through the Titanfall 2 campaign, which was super, super fun. That was like one of the better shooter campaigns we've had in a long time, really. Just kind of felt like it was kind of like Doom, actually, because I guess Doom was like another one that was really good, but like, you know, in very different ways. It just kind of, I don't know, it just felt a little different from kind of the glut of the Call of Duty Me Too's that we've had recently, where even though it was definitely more like that than Doom was, it still was kind of more, of all things, platformy and like this sort of like, I don't even know if puzzles are the word, but you know, it's not just kind of, you know, corridor shooting. So yeah, I thought that was super fun.
I kind of compared it. It kind of felt like Super Mario in parts, where the bad guys aren't really there for you to get into gunfights with. They're almost like Goombas. They provide little enemies for you to jump on to like chain your different combos, your environmental combos together. I really love that. One
of my favorite parts was kind of this section at the end where there's like a lot of like platforms I was running on. I kind of realized like I don't have to actually fight these guys. I could run through them. And you kind of have that ability to like turn invisible for like a little bit every now and then. And it wasn't just like I was cheating a game. It was like still challenging in its own way. And it was actually like super exciting and fun because they're still doing their like radio chatter. Like they're all freaking out like, oh, where is he? And it's like, yeah, this is
Can we spoil it yet? Because it's such an old game. But yeah.
It's like a few months, dude. People are going to get it for Christmas.
That interesting mode, you know, of in the middle of a game, you know, where you're just sort of going back and forth. I think
we're going to be talking about that soon because I think next week we're going to, or this week we're going to record our game of the year. We're going to put that up next week, and we could spoil any game we want during that conversation. So if you're afraid about getting spoiled by a game about a game, you guys should finish and play whatever you haven't finished and played, because we're probably going to be talking about Titanfall 2 and that level in particular. How about you, Dean? You've been playing anything?
I finally finished Watch Dogs 2. So that was.
What do you think?
And you know, I think you know, for what it was, I think they did a very good job. You know, the little mini games inside of it were more fun this time than the original Watch Dogs, and you know, it had something to say. You know, it had something at the end. Just basically your message to beware of hackers and beware of giving all of your information to a company that might resell it to somebody who's evil. Right. So,
and did you sign up for Uplay before you logged into the game?
Yeah, I had to do that.
I love that. I do appreciate that the game does have something to say, but it's always like Ubisoft, you are doing all of these things, like you are participating in all of this. So it's always kind of hilarious when a corporation's like, beware the hackers. Don't give corporations your information. Can you please sign this terms of service agreement while you're at it?
Yeah. I like how they made sort of like real world companies and took them and fictionalized them and put them in the game. So Noodle is Google, but it's kind of fun to figure out who a bunch of the other bad behaving companies are.
Were you sort of worn down by any of that? Because we're coming off like a pretty contentious election with a lot of implications about, you know, what technology can do to our democracy. And this game has a lot of that stuff in it. And for me, it was always like I was playing this and I'd be reading the news during the day. And at night I'd play a little bit of Watch Dogs 2. And I would be doing something in the game that was very reminiscent of the news, like, messing with elections or whatever, or just, anything like that. I found that kind of, it was a little bit too on the nose at points.
Yeah, I felt that, they must have added like the election fraud mission after the election in the U.S. was over. But, it's funny how hackers disrupt an election in Watch Dogs 2. And, we see that play out in real life as well. So, it's set in San Francisco. That already makes it feel very real. Like there's many moments in the game where I felt like, hey, I've walked down those streets. I've walked down this patch of grass. And so, it just really sort of almost seems like a very thinly veiled, realistic satire.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to jump into some of our topics. This week, we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch, Super Mario Run, and Star Wars. Kind of the big topics here are going to be, some new technology that we've discovered about the Switch, Super Mario Run's pricing, and Star Wars. We're gonna run down some of our favorite games there. Before we do that, though, I want to remind everyone you can get more of us on GamesBeat.com. You can always email the podcast at podcast@VentureBeat.com. That's the plus sign in there. Finally, if you like what you're listening to, be sure to subscribe. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. If you're on iTunes, feel free to give us a 5-star review. We would really appreciate it. It helps people find this show and discover it without us having to go out and yell in people's faces on the street, which I love to do still, but the reviews seem to help way more. Okay, guys. Yeah, I think we should jump into our first topic, and this one's going to be kind of a diener. That's what we call it when it's a diener. This is a diener. Basically, this is the Nintendo Switch. Last week, you wrote a story, kind of with a couple of sources saying that the Nintendo Switch is going to be using a NVIDIA Maxwell Tegra chip. It's a customized version of that. And the question I have, and this is our topic, is does the Maxwell chip make Nintendo Switch inferior? But why don't you maybe take it from the beginning, explain what this means for the Switch, and then we can have that discussion.
Well, I think, we got a big reaction because, on the one hand, there was almost disbelief that Nintendo would go with an older technology, a chip design that was essentially a couple of years old.
Yeah, because they would never do that.
Yeah, and then the other reaction was disbelief that, our story was true. And a lot of people were out trying to poke holes in it and saying that, a lot of these things have already been reported before. But, we don't really have much to say back to that because, the story's based on anonymous sources. We can't turn around and say, yeah, but so-and-so is my source. And so, I know it's...
Yeah, we know who the sources are, just to really clarify, but we can't tell everyone who that is because that's not how this works.
It was Santa Claus because he knows everything.
That's right. He's building them right now.
Mm-hmm. So, the 2-year-old technology is based on Maxwell, the architecture that NVIDIA created a couple of years ago. It's started out in their desktops and waterfalled all the way down to mobile devices like the Tegra chips. And
the NVIDIA
Tegra
Shield
chips
uses the Maxwell chip. Yeah.
The newer one, the newer architecture that came out this year was called Pascal. It was sort of like a mildly redesigned Maxwell with much lower power. So,
let's talk about the difference between Maxwell and Pascal a little bit. So, Maxwell, like you said, came out like 2014. It's it's the architecture that's inside the GTX 970, 980, a lot of that stuff. This year, NVIDIA came out with its 10 series powered by the Pascal architecture. What is the difference between Pascal and Maxwell?
So as far as just the cores go, not much change. There is much better memory bandwidth in the 10 series, Pascal, and then again much lower power consumption as well.
Yeah, but it's lower power consumption because it's a smaller process, right? So Maxwell was generally using 28 nanometer, and then they dropped it to 20 nanometer for the Tegra chip to get even better power consumption for the mobile version. And now Pascal is based on a 16 nanometer process. So that's even smaller, produces even less heat. So it's even more energy efficient.
Yeah, and that process change brings its own benefits of, cheaper, faster, smaller. But it also gives someone like Nintendo, a more interesting choice to make. And that's getting into some of the territory where we don't know exactly what Nintendo chose to do. So we were pretty clear in the article that we know that it's a customized version of the Maxwell Tegra X1, which is used in the Shield. And the degree of customization is sort of the big question there as to how much more capable Nintendo chose to make this thing. And there's different knobs they could play with there. The number of cores on the chip, the size of the chip. If they make it smaller, they make it cheaper, right? And things like the way the memory works as well. So that's one of those open questions. And,
the things so we know it runs on the Maxwell architecture, and when we say no, it means that we have two sources that have told us this. And
that part we know.
Right. And there's things that we don't know, like you were specifying. They could make a ton of changes that could make this look very different from the Maxwell X1 Tegra that was inside the Shield. And one of the big things they could change is the process. It could still be like, and this is all speculating at this point. This is things that we don't know. It could be the 16 nanometer process, which would have many of the benefits of Pascal, right? It just doesn't have that memory, the memory bandwidth, the improvements, right?
Right. And so, I think we do know that it was not a massive number of engineers assigned to this that would suggest a complete redo of the X1. It's a relatively minor change that Nintendo has asked for. And so the performance is going to be more like Maxwell and the Tegra X1, which is in the Shield. They can speed it up through 16 nanometer, higher clock, for example. It's not the thing that everybody wanted it to be, which was
a lot of people want it. I wouldn't say, because I would argue that I didn't necessarily want it to be a portable PlayStation 4. I guess in my wildest dreams I wanted that, but I always knew there was no chance. So this jumps us in maybe into the topic discussion. It doesn't really make the Switch inferior to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, or do we have to take other things into consideration, like the fact that it is a portable system at heart? And Dean, since you know about this, you're reporting about this, let's jump to Mike, who is kind of hearing this stuff. Mike, what does this make you feel?
So I don't know as much about all this kind of chip stuff as you guys. I know Dean's a big expert on this. But this is kind of, when was the last time Nintendo could say it had the most powerful console on the market? The Super Nintendo, maybe 64, right? That hasn't been their thing for a while. And I guess I just kind of always, I always knew that this thing would be where it's probably going to be, slightly less powerful than Xbox One or PlayStation 4, just like the Wii U was slightly less powerful than a 360 and PlayStation 3, even when that thing came out. At least it's not the Wii, where it was just literally the same tech as the previous generation. And it kind of comes down to the thing, how good does the tech need to be for, what kind of stuff Nintendo's going to do, right? Basically, the thing could run Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, or Skyrim, whatever. That's fine. Am I that concerned about how good is Call of Duty gonna look on the Switch if they want to port it over there? Not so much. I think the interesting thing to me, for most people, is that whole portable home console hybrid thing. And I think there's definitely a point where it looks good enough, right? Especially once you're on a screen that small, I have to imagine there comes kind of a diminishing returns of how high the resolution is, and stuff like that.
Just to clarify, the rumor is, and this is something we didn't confirm yet, but it seems pretty well confirmed at this point, is that screen is 6.2 inches and it's a 720p screen. That makes a lot of sense. They wouldn't even go to 1080p because on a 6.2 inch screen, going from 720p to 1080p, you don't really get that much of a difference. Like, it's hard to tell those extra pixels. They don't make the image look any clearer because our eyes can't distinguish that. People say, well, your smartphone, that's at like way above 1080p. There's some like ultra HD screens in smartphones, but almost no game runs at 1080p on your phone. They all run at 720p. That resolution's used for text, for reading websites and reading like small little words, where that resolution is useful, and it's easy to kind of process that stuff.
I guess where we're getting into areas where people care about is like, what does it look like on the TV? And
right,
some of the question there remains: well, why didn't Nintendo go to 4K on the TV when you're displaying?
They were never going to do that.
Yeah, and one of the interesting questions is because the Shield is capable of 4K.
Well, the Shield, it's capable of doing 4K video. Let's clarify that. So the Shield console, which is like it uses the latest version of the Tegra, which is a Maxwell. It's not a custom Maxwell. It's just a Maxwell architecture Tegra. Mm-hmm. It can do 1080p video games. It can stream 1080p video games from your console, but it can also stream 4K video from Netflix. It can also, 4K games, I think, from your computer using like the NVIDIA network or whatever, the NVIDIA GeForce Experience, if you have that. So, are you saying that you're pretty sure that the Switch won't be able to do 4K video like from Netflix?
Yeah, that was basically what I understood. That it's not. Okay. Well, that is surprising. I'm sorry, Netflix I don't know about, but I'm talking about the games.
Okay, so yeah, so people it won't be able to output the games at 4K, but maybe it could still do like streaming video.
Again, that's just like not something that was like so far from being a possibility with me almost ever. That's like, I don't know. Right. I'm much more concerned about just performance in terms of like a steady frame rate, hopefully a high frame rate, right? Even like Wii U Nintendo games, right? They usually ran very well,
60 frames per second.
Yeah, sure. And that's kind of like especially like a 3D Mario game, man, right? You need that stuff at 60 frames per second, and that's that's kind of the concern, I suppose.
One of our sources was getting more specific about the performance of these boxes. Right? So about a teraflop for the Nintendo Switch, about 1.3 teraflops for the Xbox One. 1.8 for the PlayStation 4, and Microsoft has come out and said they're going to do 6 teraflops on Project Scorpio when it comes out.
Yes, but let's clarify that as well, because are those all? Those aren't. You can't compare those necessarily 1-to-1 because a teraflop on AMD architecture is different from 1 teraflop on NVIDIA. It could be very different. You can get more from NVIDIA in certain circumstances, but if you're on the Tegra, maybe you're getting less per teraflop. And it's also whether or not it's like floating point 16 or 32. Most games run at like 30, floating point 32. This is very technical at this point. The point is that maybe those teraflop numbers aren't always necessarily a 1-to-1 apples to apples comparison. They are a good starting point, though.
Right. One point I was getting to was people have been wondering and speculating about whether VR is going to be doable on the Switch.
Yeah.
And if at a the Xbox One, Microsoft has said that VR on it, maybe you should wait until Scorpio if you really want to do.
Xbox One Scorpio is the one that's going to be able to do that. That's where they started talking about VR.
And so, if the Switch is less powerful than the Xbox One, then you can probably conclude then, okay, VR is really not going to happen on this one.
Yeah, that's another thing, though. And I think, Mike, you probably agree with this. If VR was a thing, they probably would have been talking about it by now. I think the things that they've shown in their trailer, where it's just you plug it into your home system, you take it out, and you're playing games on the go, that whole process of the Switch is the thing that they are selling this on, and VR was actually kind of now a dream that's not possible, and we all kind of knew that.
Yeah, I mean, does everybody need to do VR? I guess it's kind of my question, right? I mean, we already have the PC solutions. We have Sony, and we know Xbox One's going to have one. Is it going to be that big a deal if Nintendo doesn't do its kind of Me Too VR thing? It doesn't really bother me necessarily.
So here's my thing. I just don't want the power of the Switch to be the reason that third parties don't support it. Now, I don't necessarily need third parties to support it in a huge way, But I do sort of like the idea of having the next Bethesda game on my Switch so that I can play it on my TV and then play it on the go on one device. That's interesting to me, and I would imagine it would be a big selling point for a lot of people out there.
Sure.
And the more successful this thing is, the more games it'll get, the better it'll perform, the more money Nintendo can pour into first party development. It all just sort of leads into this bigger ecosystem that I want the Switch to have. So that's my concern. And Dean, do you think that it's powerful enough for most third parties? Do you think EA will be able to support this system with the power that's inside the Switch as we understand it?
Yes, and based on the reporting, we did hear that Nintendo's throwing a wider net. It's trying to recruit more third parties, and those third parties are coming along. Even from the screen that it shared from the original video showing all of the different supporters. If you notice, Unreal is on there, and Epic hasn't really been a supporter of Nintendo consoles. And here, Epic is putting out a lot of engineering work to make sure that Unreal Engine games can run on the Switch. And those games are typically much more demanding than ones you'll find on, say, Unity. And so, if that is going to be present, and it's going to make it a much easier for game companies to make games for the Switch, then the concern that people have that it's not high end enough is mitigated. And if you can run Unreal Engine games on this box, then what is your problem, right?
So I think kind of wrapping this up, I think that the concern about Maxwell may be overstated, especially if they do use a 16 nanometer process, which is still possible. Even if they don't, 20 nanometers is the difference between the Maxwell 20 nanometers and Pascal wasn't enough to really probably for Nintendo to wait. Like our story, as you reported it, Dean, the reason Nintendo isn't using Pascal, the biggest reason is it's not ready as the mobile chip. That the Tegra version is just not ready yet. Had it been ready, they probably would have used it. It's not, and the only way they'd be able to use it is if they delayed the Switch until later this year. So the fact that they're pushing it out now, it kind of signifies to me that Nintendo is perfectly happy with the power in this. As you pointed out, the fact that Epic is supporting this, saying the Unreal Engine's working, is a huge sign to me as well, that third parties probably will support this, or at least the power won't be the reason that they don't. Who knows? There's probably going to be a million other reasons that third parties don't want to work with Nintendo, but I don't think the power is going to be the issue. And finally,
I'd want to point out that.
Device. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I want to point out that the reason Nintendo didn't want to wait is not only because the Wii U wasn't selling. I think it's because they felt like they had something good with the hybrid, strategy of going both mobile and going to using the same machine for the TV, that they wanted to get it out and get it out before anybody else really gave it a shot. And that sort of goes back to the fact that they started developing, the tablet screen for the Wii U, quite a long time before anybody had mentioned the iPad. But they shipped it like 2 years after the iPad came out. And so by then it was no longer a big deal. It was no longer novel, and the Wii U didn't take off. So I think they've learned that again. Yeah, they've learned that urgency is really important in getting your hardware out.
Yep, that sounds pretty good. So I think that's going to wrap up that topic. It's maybe it is a little inferior just in terms of raw power. Of course it is, but I wouldn't call it an inferior console just because. If you take it and look at it as a handheld, then in that case, Xbox One and PlayStation 4 aren't even capable of that, and that makes them inferior in that way. So I'm not worried about that. Moving on, we're still going to be talking about Nintendo. This time, it's its other mobile strategy, Super Mario Run. This game came out last week, was it? Yeah, it's only been out for a few days now. I don't have it because I have an Android, which makes me very sad. But you both have been playing it, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, Dean's gonna rub it in my face right now. I can tell. So the big question here is: did Nintendo goof up by making Super Mario Run cost $10? It's a free thing to download, but to unlock the whole thing, there he is. Yes, this is just mean. This is cruelty. I hate it. The game costs $10 after you download it for free and play the first 3 levels. And it's getting kind of hammered on the user reviews on Apple. And I think the price is the big reason. There's some other stuff. Always online connection that I don't like either. But I think the $10 price is the big thing here. Do you guys believe that Nintendo goofed up by making the game $10? Let's start with you, Mike.
I mean, I think they goofed up in that maybe they underestimated how much people would kind of whine about that. I think they made a $10 product, but right? And I just think that the mobile gamer kind of consumer base is just so used to free to play that it's just like they just can't accept it, right? They just can't accept buying a game for $10 on their phone, even if it's like a Mario game that's, pretty good and pretty, has a lot of features and all this stuff. But, as soon as they the other interesting thing too is like a lot of them feel like manipulated, right? Even though Nintendo was always very straightforward about like the free version not having much, right? And just kind of being a thing. Like once you play those 3 levels and it says, hey, you have to pay for the rest of it. I think in Nintendo's mind, this is like a good thing. Like, oh, people can try it before they buy it. But to like a lot of consumers, it's like, what is this? They like tricked me into downloading this, and now they want me to pay for it. You almost wonder if it would have been better if there wasn't a trial version. It was just pay $10 and get it. It's Mario, probably like it. So yeah, I don't know. The whole thing's kind of sad, I think, in a way, because I like that somebody just made a mobile game that costs $10 and it's pretty good and it's worth that. And I'm glad it doesn't have microtransactions and all this stuff. But I feel like the lesson that consumers is teaching Nintendo is no, we don't want that. We want a free to play game, and don't make it cost $10, but sell us stupid things. I don't know. And there's like so many things in that game that could be microtransactions.
Right.
Like you unlock characters, and you have to you have like a mushroom kingdom that you build. And there's so many opportunities there for lame microtransactions and like. Oh, you're starting to build a mushroom house. Well, it'll take 8 hours, but you get paid $2 right now. Be ready now. I guess that's what they'll probably end up doing on whatever their next thing is. Because I feel like they are kind of learning here that consumers don't like premium priced mobile games.
That's possible. How about you, Dean? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it sort of makes me wonder just how smart some consumers are again. I think that. They don't maybe realize that Nintendo was actually not being greedy by setting a $10 price. Nintendo knows that free to play can be a gigantic gold mine. They've
seen
companies.
the Pokemon Go numbers. They know what kind
Pokemon
of money
Go
is in free to play.
has done enormously well with $600 million in microtransactions in the first 90 days, right? Completely free to play game. And so these people who are playing Pokemon Go aren't necessarily getting a great bargain, particularly the ones that are buying all the stuff in it. And I wrote a story about this guy who played Modern War from Gree, and he claimed that he spent $2 million $2 million over 4 years in the game. Now, if Gree had set that game's price at $10, he would have been playing it for 4 years for $10, right?
And Gree would have missed out on a lot of money. Greed, it would have been the opposite of greed for sure.
Yeah. So Nintendo definitely, isn't being greedy by setting a $10 price. Now, whether or not the game itself is good enough to be worth $10, then that's sort of like a separate question. It's a familiar game. It's there's not much to it. It is slightly different than what you feel like you play on the TV or on a 3DS. I think $10 is a very fair price for that game. And you're right that the free levels somehow are meant to be a kindness, which is you can actually try this game out before you pay your $10. And the interpretation that got twisted is that you tricked me into playing these 3 levels, and now you're sticking this paywall in front of me, and I can't get past the paywall. And oh my God, how evil can you be?
Here's my thing about this.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. So I feel like the people who are complaining the most or the loudest, maybe not everyone, they are the people who have never paid any money ever for a mobile game, microtransaction or otherwise. And we know that this is a huge portion of the number of people who play mobile games. Something like 5% monetize, like something like that. Maybe it's more in other games, less in others. And then like 2% of the overall actually pay for the game, really, because they're the whales. They spend a ton of money and they subsidize the play of everyone else. So there's this group of people who are used to never, ever, ever paying for mobile games. It is their closely held belief. Instead, like it's inside of their heart. I do not pay to play mobile games, and I never, ever will. And I've talked to these people. I've heard them, and they say that. They're like, I'll never play for a mobile game. That's insane. Why would anyone ever do that? And so I don't know. I don't necessarily know if Nintendo, you're probably right, Mike. Nintendo probably isn't learning the lesson that they can't really charge $10 for a mobile game, but that's actually not the real lesson. I think they probably will take that away from this. But right. What's actually happening is the people who never pay aren't paying, and they're just being loud about it. And Nintendo is still in general making a pretty good amount of money from this game. I think we have estimations so far, but the estimations are it's made about $21 million. Those aren't Pokemon Go numbers, but that's on like 25 million downloads. So they're making a little bit less than $1 per download. And it has more downloads through its first 4 days than any app ever. So $1 per download is probably about the same as most other games get. Like that was Pokemon Go. It had 500 million downloads and it made about $500 million. So $1 per download. So, Super Mario Run is doing a little bit worse than that, but not that much worse. And at the same time, it's still this $10 game that is, actually a favor to most people who understand how this process works. Like right now, I'm playing a new Star Wars game. I don't think it's out yet in most territories, but it's a Star Wars Force Arena, I think it's called, and it is exactly a clone of Clash Royale, one of the biggest games of the past year from Supercell. And I like the game a lot, but boy, every time I get reminded of free-to-play monetization, it really bums me out, because it's like they're giving you a free card pack every once in a while, and you earn card packs when you win. And to unlock the card packs, you have to click on them and then wait 8 hours. If you buy a doubler, you can get it in 4 hours instead. So of course you have to buy the doubler, because just think about that. That's like, okay, if I can get it in 4 hours, I could play this game a couple times a day and get more card packs, and you could only have a finite number of card packs at a time. And my brain starts going down the trail of all the ways in which this game is purposely wasting my time, so it puts me in pain, so that I will spend money so that I can avoid that pain. And video games for me were always a way to avoid ever thinking about money in my life ever. Money's like one of the things I'm really terrible at. I'm no good at it at all. So I go play a video game. It's a thing like, okay, I pay a little bit of money and I have this world that's finite and complete. And if I go into this world, I can kind of control it and manipulate it. And I don't have to think about all these outside economic factors. But mobile gaming is just that for me. And it bums me out. So I was really happy to see Nintendo do this and try this something different. And it almost kind of makes me a little giddy, a little happy that there are all these people whining about this game and how it costs money. And I'm like, okay, go ahead and whine. You just won't get to play it. And that makes me happy. Like, I will. See, I'm going to pay $10.
I'll be fine with that too. But again, I could see Super Mario Run 2 now free to play, like on the horizon.
No, you're right. That's totally going to happen too. Animal Crossing 100% will have free to play microtransactions. 100%. That's the next Animal Crossing. Because the Nintendo, their next couple of mobile games are Fire Emblem and Animal Crossing. At
Fire
least Animal Crossing.
I have no idea what that's going to be like.
Yeah, me neither. But they probably both will be free to play. Animal Crossing, without a doubt. I have no doubt in my mind, though. That's going to be, just one transaction after another. And I'm wondering how they're going to pull that off. But I'm sure it's going to make a ton of money. But yes, I don't think they goofed up. Of course they could have made more money by going free to play. And of course they would have avoided a lot of this whining. And maybe Nintendo could have done a better job of letting people know what they get for spending their money. I understand that's some of the criticism, that people are like, okay, I played these 3 levels. What does spending $10 get me? I don't really understand. But at the same time, I think Nintendo, like Mike, like you said, they've been very clear. Like $10, you get the whole game. Like right. That's what happens. So yeah, I wouldn't say they goofed up.
Okay.
All right, guys. Let's move on to our last topic. Star Wars. Rogue One just came out, so I kind of wanted to look back at some Star Wars games, and I think we should try to rank the top 5 Star Wars games.
Man. Is that all?
So where do you guys want to start with this?
KOTOR's number 1, duh. Right.
Man, that's a good start. How about
Does
you?
anyone like? How can you? I don't know what you put in front of Knights of the Old Republic. It's kind of just quintessential right now, right? It's the best Star Wars story we got told. I mean, it's still like a super fun kind of old school BioWare role playing game, which might be better than modern BioWare role playing games at this point. You know, and it's good stuff, and it doesn't really rely too much on like old Star Wars nostalgia, right? It's not like doing the original trilogy thing. It's not doing the prequel trilogy thing. It's like familiar. It's definitely Star Wars, but it's got a lot of its own stuff going on. It's all these different characters, all these new planets and whatnot. Just very satisfying game to play through, and classic for all times. So there.
Okay, so I like that argument. I'm glad we kind of talked that one out. That's definitely going to be on the list, without a doubt. So right now we have Knights of the Old Republic. Dean, do you have a game you would add to this list?
I'm trying to remember my favorite. It's the shooter one from many years ago.
What, Dark Forces?
Yeah, Dark Forces.
The Doom, like the Quake. Wait, is the Quake was born?
I think it was
long.
based in Quake.
That's 1995. Shooter from 1995. Yeah.
See, I was more a fan of like the sequels to that, like the first Jedi Knight and the Jedi Outcast, especially. I was really a fan of.
I think I would agree with that, Mike. I liked Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. A little. I think Dark Forces was definitely influential and important, but you're right. I think the sequels were a bigger deal.
The funny thing about Jedi Outcast, it's like one of those like last like shooters that just kind of like once Halo came, and then even more so of Call of Duty, and kind of changed things. Like you play Jedi Outcast, and you're still like kind of wandering around and finding key cards, and you have like 1 through 10 of your keyboard, switch through all the weapons, and just kind of like that stuff that used to be how these things worked, like from Doom until literally like Jedi Outcast, and then right after that it's Halo, and it's all different.
All right.
Yeah, I'm looking back at the graphics, and they just look horrible right now.
It's an old game, Dean.
But yeah, they.
All right, I'm making a list, and I'm going to put
Dark
it up here on the
Forces
right
seems
here
so
in a
good
second.
back then.
I don't know. I'm skeptical of Dean's eye for these things after the story he wrote about Rogue One today, but we won't talk about that. It's a spoiler.
What did he? I'm gonna have to read this. Okay. All right. So we have Knights of the Old Republic, Jedi Knight 2, right, and then Dark Forces. Sorry,
What about some of the other shooters? I think the other one everybody really likes is
Republic
Rogues.
Commando?
Republic Commando was the really fun one, right?
So I would we'll talk about Battlefront, but let's talk about Republic Commando a little bit. I was always really surprised by Republic Commando. So it was like a prequel era game. Came out for like the original Xbox, right, and PC maybe.
Right.
And it was a shooter where you're like the elite clone troopers who are going in and doing all these special, forces operations, and you're a group of 4, and they each have their own personalities, and you command them to do special things. Like one's a demolitions guy, so when you have to blow something up, you send him in. And I thought that game was really well made and really interesting, and probably would have been a very good game, even if it didn't have the Star Wars license. So yeah, I would have it up on this list for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it was almost good despite the Star Wars license, because there was all that kind of prequel stuff that we didn't really like, and it was actually still like relevant at that time. I was like, oh god, this stuff. It was probably like the best thing to come out of that whole prequel stuff, like that and those original Clone Wars cartoons. Yeah, it was just it was hard to say. It wasn't like the game was ever doing anything like super new or crazy, but it was just very well made. Just a very like well paced game. It was a fun game. The kind of interactions amongst those 4 was really interesting. Plus, it was kind of, even though they weren't quite stormtroopers, we never really had like a full on like you're a kind of like amongst the stormtroopers game, right? You had like stuff like X-wing and TIE fighter, but I don't know, it seemed neat.
All right, so Dean, you mentioned Battlefront. Would you want Battlefront on the top 5?
Yeah. I mean, it's just
It's very good, but I thought it was very easy to throw away at the same time. Like,
right.
As soon as another game came along, I was sort of done with Battlefront. Now I've gone.
I liked it, man. Me and Jeff were big Battlefront defenders too.
Yes, yes, exactly. Like I liked it a lot when I played it, but I just think it's a little bit too forgettable, and I think we're gonna have to wait for a sequel to really appreciate what they've done here.
What about the other Battlefronts?
I was never a big fan.
I was never a huge fan. I know everybody is like, oh, this isn't like those old, really good Battlefronts. Yeah, I was like, those games were okay.
Yeah. I know that's like blasphemy, but I'm like, good. Well, I mean, it's on the list for now.
Well, I kind of like the Star Wars The Force Unleashed for its story. And then
that's why he's not canon anymore. It doesn't matter.
The execution was, I guess, a little something to be desired, I guess. But,
I almost had like the opposite thing. I liked the lightsaber like fighting and the force physics, whereas like everything else about it was kind of whatever for me.
I like the thing where he brought down the Star Destroyer in like the preview, the trailer.
I disliked that.
Okay,
heavily.
Well, I like that, but
I think it's too flawed to be a top
wasn't really a thing in the game. Yeah.
What about now? I haven't played these games, but I feel like everybody loves those flight simulators, the X-wing and the TIE Fighter. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, X-Wing cross TIE Fighter.
I was a bit too young, I think, and I wasn't into PC gaming at the time. Dean, do you have any experience with the TIE Fighter X-Wing series?
I would go back farther to Star Wars Rebel Assault in 1993.
That I did play. That was like the FMV game, right? With like
the first CD-ROM game to be published.
Yeah, it came with like if you like bought like a CD-ROM for your 486 or whatever, it would come with a copy of Rebel Assault. That game was interesting, but it was also pretty whack. I mean, it's very basic if you go back and play it now.
Yeah, I spent a lot of hours with that one.
I did too. It was one of
the good old days.
Yeah, that and that Sherlock Holmes game, the Sherlock Holmes FMV game, which I want to go back and play, but I haven't played in a while. But that's off the topic. All right, so let me bring my Star Wars thing over here. Okay, so what other games should we pop on this list? How about the N64 GameCube?
I think the best of those, if you're talking about like the kind of the Rogue Squadron series, or if you want to maybe even include Shadows of the Empire, I think Rogue Leader, which was that GameCube launch game.
Yes, that's the one I would go with too. And I definitely want that on this list. I think
I can see that. Maybe number 5, but I could see that. I mean, that was, especially at the time, that was the most like kind of wish fulfillment Star Wars game outside of like wanting to be a Jedi. It's always, fly the X-Wing. Like the very first thing you do in that game is the Death Star run. And it was just so cool. It's still fun to play that today. And they made that sequel for the GameCube. It's just like it had a lot of the ground stuff. It just was like worse. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's kind of better.
I understand they were trying to do something different, and they had like covered a lot of the ground that they could cover. That was a bad pun, but they in Rogue Squadron 2, like I remember waiting for the GameCube to come out and like having like the demo disc or the demo station at like different game stores, and I would go and I'd play it over and over and over, and then when the GameCube came out, it came with a demo disc for it, and I played that over and over and like practically wore out that disc. So yeah, I like that a lot. I hope it sticks on at number 5. I'm trying to think. Do you guys have anything else like big that we should make sure that is on this list so far before we start arranging things?
Well, that fighting in the Masters of Terra Psi or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's number 1, without a doubt.
I do think it's time to try again with the whole Star Wars fighting game idea. You could do something there. Like it was cool when Vader and Yoda were in Soul Calibur 4. Is that one? Yeah.
Is there any love for KOTOR 2?
I don't think anybody likes KOTOR. Like I think there's some love for it, but nobody would say it's better than KOTOR 1.
I've known people who've said that, but I think they're like a small group who like love Obsidian. What are you saying, Dean? What should we put on here?
I would put Lego Star Wars in.
Yeah, I was going to ask
that's
about that.
That's the way that my kids actually learned the whole Star Wars story before they saw the movies.
Well, that's just your bad father. That's just bad parenting, man.
I'm just like the whole Lego thing is. At the time when it was like the first one doing that, it was really cool. At this point, it's just been so many Lego games where I can't even probably enjoy those original Star Wars Lego games anymore. It's just like something I've done so much now at this point. I don't know how I think they were really cool at the time. I don't know how incredibly well they hold up.
Let's talk about a few more like the Super Nintendo series, like the Super
Those are
Star
fun.
Wars.
Platformers are really hard, but I don't know.
They're very
not like,
hard.
Yeah, they're not like all-time great games.
Yeah,
like a lot of the strategy games, none of them ever really hit that well for me. I know Jason actually likes them. He probably be.
I know there's one that people are like, this was underappreciated, but yeah, I know at the time all of them were panned.
The only one I really even played a little bit was the one that was literally just the Age of Empires 2 clone. Like it was the same engine and everything. They just put Star Wars stuff over it, and I liked that because I liked Age of Empires 2, and it was just all right, sure, I can play this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else that we have to add to this list.
What about the online games, Star Wars Galaxy?
Oh yeah, the Old Republic.
Republic's still going. I'll give it that much. I kind of counted that out a while
really
ago.
like
People
that,
like
but
it now.
I haven't played it enough to.
I think they've done a pretty good job kind of turning it around and like finding its identity as sort of like this very like almost like a single player, not really a single player, but like where the multiplayer stuff is kind of like complementary to like going through just this persistent world and doing your single player story and whatnot.
Yeah, I think the game has definitely earned its place where it's at now.
Star Wars Galaxies was really interesting in a way, right? Because it was not just a Warcraft clone or EverQuest clone. Like, it really did try to like make like a Star Wars world where maybe you weren't fighting things, maybe you were a tavern dancer, and that was what you did, and it was very social and strange, and it ultimately didn't work. But I admired it for what it was trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's the new one that on mobile that a lot has been very, very popular is Star Wars Galaxy. Heroes.
Any of these mobile games, it's not out yet, so I'm not going to put Force Arena on there. It is a very good game, but it is absolutely a Clash Royale clone. It's a Clash Royale clone with like Dota heroes, Dota heroes that are Han Solo and Leia and stuff. But I wouldn't put any other mobile game on here from the Star Wars series. Would you guys?
Yeah. They're all fine, but they're all mobily. Maybe if they cost $10, they would have been better.
That's a good point. I'm with you there. All right, let's start arranging this list. Let's lock it in. Knights of the Old Republic at 1. I think that's right.
Yeah.
It's one of the first like big RPGs I played, Western RPGs I played, and it really clicked for me. And I played through the whole thing and really loved it.
It's like if there was going to be one like Star Wars game that like would get turned into a movie, it would be Knights of the Republic. There's almost
you're right. It established its own ethos and mythology, and that was separate from the Star Wars that we knew, but was still the Star Wars galaxy clearly. And on top of that, it just had really great storytelling, character storytelling that I really appreciated. Dean, any fight there for anything else?
Well, my vote is for Rebel Assault, but you guys have not even bothered to put it on the list.
I did not even
voted me again.
Dean, I thought Rebel Assault was cheesy.
I'm just used to being outvoted here. There
it is.
I liked Rebel Assault 2.
It should be number 2, though. It should be number 2.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be placed at number 2. Dean, we're helping you here.
At the number of hours I put into it, it should be like number 2.
I do feel bad that we basically just put Dean's 3 suggestions on the bottom of the list.
We haven't arranged anything yet. So, but yeah, they are down there. Yeah. They are down there. I can't see putting.
I just can't do it though.
But I put a lot of hours into that game because I think I played the same level over and over and over again. Yeah, trying to
like the first one. Like there's the training level on Tatooine
level. Yeah.
And that was cool, but you're basically just moving a cursor around like a video. Like it's so bad.
It's like what's that game with Dirk the Brave or whatever? It's like Dragon's Lair.
Oh,
yeah.
It's just Dragon's Lair. God.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna for people listening on the podcast, I'm gonna read the list again. This is not in order except for number 1: Knights of the Old Republic, Jedi Knight 2, Dark Forces, Republic Commando, Star Wars Rogue Leader, Rogue Squadron 2, Star Wars Battlefront, Lego Star Wars, and Rebel Assault. You guys want to move this around at all? I think I kind of want to move down Dark Forces.
8-2.
God damn it, Dean.
I'm going to sneak it in there.
You can't sneak it in. There's 3 of us.
There's no sneaking in.
And he controls the list.
Yeah, I see what you're trying to do. All right.
I don't know. Dark Forces, I don't think should go too low. I think Republic Commando, Jedi Knight 2 are maybe ahead of it. And maybe Rogue Leader. Is Rogue Leader number 2? Is that where that is?
No, it's at number 4 right now.
I know, but what I'm saying is it number 2?
I think it might be number 2.
I think it might be number 2.
I think it stands out in the same way that Knights of the Old Republic stands out, where it isn't relying so much on the very specific parts of the movies. It's like drawing off the canvas in interesting ways, and using a lot of the extended universe stuff to establish something original. And at the same time, the flight action was very good. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy with putting that in at number 2. Now, Dean.
Yeah.
If you are serious about Rebel Assault in this top 5, mind you, we're going to have to drop something like Dark Forces to get it on there.
Well, I think Dark Forces was better. So.
All right.
So you said it yourself. All right. So, all right, let's make a little gap here. And Dark Forces is one that Dean suggested, Mike. So we are going to get a Dean on here.
Okay. I agree with him on Dark Forces. Dark Forces was pretty cool.
I do too. So Knights of the Old Republic at 1, Rogue Leader Rogue Squadron 2 at number 2, Jedi Knight 2 at 3, Republic Commando at 4, Dark Forces at 5. We're starting to feel like this is getting to be closer.
It seems pretty good. I guess it seems a little first-person shooter heavy, but I guess they.
What else would we put in? What else?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where they. I mean, they've for some reason always done better in that genre than.
I like
strategy.
that pod racing game.
Actually, that was actually a pretty good game. It was Pod Racer for the Dreamcast.
The Dreamcast or N64. It was definitely better on the Dreamcast, but either one.
It was way better on Dreamcast.
Yeah, no, clearly, but whatever. It still worked on N64.
I don't want to kick Dean's Dark Forces off for it though. Maybe Dark Forces is ahead of Republic Commando, and maybe Pod Racer's at number 5.
So we'll say that again?
Maybe Dark Forces is number 4, and then Pod Racer's number 5.
Okay, what are we dropping?
Dropping Commando, I think. Well, yeah, I like Jedi Knight 2 more than Republic Commando.
Yeah, okay, so find out the name of that game for me, the Pod Racer.
I think it's just called Pod Racer. There was a sequel called Jedi. No, I forget what the sequel was called.
Bombast Racing. Jedi Bombast Racing.
Yeah.
That
Pod
Mario Kart clone.
Okay, so excuse my mechanical keyboard. It's called Star Wars Episode 1, Pod Racer.
Never mind. We're not putting it on here.
Just to remind you.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Okay, so making that gap again. I guess, let's see, do we have enough for 10 now? I mean, we could just make a... If we put one more on here...
No, get the 5. Let's wrap this up.
God, just trying to be diplomatic, Mike.
Get him off there. Long, loser games.
Knights of the Old Republic, number 1. Number 2 is Rogue Leader. Number 3 is Jedi Knight 2. Number 4 is Pod Racer. And number 5 is Dark Forces.
You have to say its full name. It's Dark Forces 3, Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. Then there's Jedi Academy, which is Dark Forces 4, Jedi Knight 3, Jedi Outcast 2, Jedi Academy.
God, it really should be disqualified just for that. Okay, I feel good about this list. Any quabbles or squabbles or any qualms?
I think they should make a Rogue One game now.
I agree with that. I hope, but who knows? It'll be a mobile game.
I think I had enough Rogue One from the movie.
I know, Mike, you're not as into it as other people, but I love it.
I didn't hate it.
I know you don't hate it. I know you like it. You like the movie. It's just,
it was fun. It was a fun movie to watch, but I don't know. When I'm seeing like these headlines like best Star Wars movie ever, I'm like, what?
I think that's some people that generally didn't like Star Wars to begin with. But yeah, we could have this conversation elsewhere. I loved it.
It's very unlike a Star Wars movie.
Yes, it's very different. Yes. We could just talk. Actually, we could just talk about it. Screw it. Let's throw away this whole podcast. Just talk about Rogue One.
No.
I like the shades of gray. All right.
I don't. I
know you don't.
Rebels good, Empire bad. That's what
Rebels,
I like.
The good Rebels that we had in the other movies are good, and the Empire is bad, but there has to be never mind. Here we go. Never mind. Star Wars, top 5. Knights of the Old Republic. Star Wars, Rogue Leader, Rogue Squadron 2. Jedi Knight 2, and then like 50 other words. Star Wars, Episode 1, Pod Racer. Star Wars, Dark Forces. That's a pretty good list.
All right.
Yeah.
That's our top 5.
Happy to get my one in there.
Yeah, you snuck Dark Forces in. Special mention to Rebel Assault. Special,
of course.
The cheesy Star Wars game. All right, guys. Yeah, I think that's going to do it. So,
the arcade game. We forgot the arcade game. What was
You know what? That arcade game actually was sweet. Put that at number 6, then you have a top 10 list.
Yeah.
Star Wars Arcade.
Oh my God.
That game was
Forget that
awesome. That's still in movie theater like lobbies all over the world. It's great.
Oh my God, that just happened. So now Rebel Assault is on our top 10 list.
Star Wars Arcade. Yes.
Oh, this is a nightmare. Yeah, okay, Lego Star Wars. Okay, so here's the full top 10 now. Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars Rogue Leader, Jedi Knight 2, Star Wars 1, Episode 1, or Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer, Dark Forces. Then at number 6, Star Wars Arcade, which I think is just the actual name, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Republic
Even
Commando.
1983. Ooh.
What? No, we're talking about different ones now.
No, oh my God, please. I'm not talking about the old one. I'm talking about the one that was alive when I was alive. The better one.
So disappointed now. I mean, yes, the old one. They can say the old one too. Fine.
Yeah, fine. Whatever. I don't care anymore. Star Wars
I thought we meant that one where like
the one from like Namco or whatever.
Yeah,
like
blow up the Death
Dreamcast
Star.
graphics.
Yeah, you blow up the Death Star in the other one too, or like, but you can actually light the
You blow up
lightsaber fight
the
with
Death
Darth
Star
Vader.
in all of them.
Yeah, it's like you can't go a day in Star Wars without blowing up a Death Star. All right, then number 7, Republic Commando. Number 8, Battlefront. Number 9, Lego Star Wars. Number 10, Rebel Assault. Oh my God.
Right.
Damn. All right, guys. I think that's pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that'll do it. That'll do, kid.
Alrighty.
All right, that brings us to the end. Dean, I want you to tell everyone where they can find you on the internet so they can, chase you and stalk you.
Well, they can find me on VentureBeat and GamesBeat.com.
And then your Twitter is Dean Tack.
Oh, Dean Tack, yeah.
All right, and then Mike.
I'm Tokoto on Twitter, and you can find me at VentureBeat, and also I do the Exploding Barrel podcast with my brother at ebpodcast.com.
And it still says I'm Jeff Grubb Poop Butt McFarties. Okay, no,
I added the other
something new
parts.
this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Grubb on Twitter. And sometimes I make videos on YouTube. You can get them there on youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. And that's it. That's it for the podcast. I'm going to go try to watch Rogue One again before I have a baby. Because that's like the last movie I see. You guys have a good week. And we're going to see you all next week. It'll be after Christmas, I think. Yeah, because Christmas is on Sunday. We're back on Monday. Me and Mike will do a podcast, but then we're also going to have Game of the Year and a few other end-of-year podcasts next week. So, look out in the feed. We're going to have a bunch of stuff for you to wrap up 2016 nice and tight in a cute little bow, even though I'm terrible at wrapping presents. So, yeah, it'll be good. All right, guys, say goodbye, wave, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
What's the outro? Still no cats. No cats.